I spent an entire year saving for this trip. 365 days of double shifts at the Asheville Public Library, of skipping lunches, of turning down the thermostat, and wearing 3 sweaters in January. Every single dollar I could spare went into that account, all for 1 week, one perfect week, with my entire family, at a resort in Hilton Head, South Carolina. 10 of us. My 2 sons, Michael and David, their wives, my 4 grandchildren. 7 days of togetherness, of beach sunsets, of meals around one big table. 7 days of finally feeling like I mattered to them, as much as they mattered to me. At 65, working part-time and living alone in my small bungalow, this wasn't just a vacation. It was my dream. My chance to create the kind of memories that would hold us together long after I was gone. The morning we left, I woke up at 5 a.m., too excited to sleep. My suitcase had been packed for 2 weeks, sitting by my front door with a red ribbon tied to the handle. I'd bought a new outfit, khaki capris and a floral blouse, because I wanted to look nice in the photos. I wanted everything to be perfect. Michael was supposed to pick me up, but plans changed. "We're all meeting at David's place first," he said. So I took a cab to my son's house in North Asheville, where both SUVs were already packed, and the kids were running around with beach toys. There was something in the air I couldn't name, inside jokes I wasn't part of, glances between the adults that made my stomach tighten. But I pushed it away. They were excited. We were all excited. An hour into the drive, David's SUV suddenly veered off at an exit. "There's this cute farm stand David found on Instagram," Stephanie explained from the driver's seat. "We're stopping for photos." It seemed odd. We were already behind schedule, but I went along. I always go along. Mossy Creek Farm was picturesque. Old red barn, sunflowers taller than the children, perfect Carolina sunshine. "Ruth, come on. We need you in the pictures," they called. They posed me in front of the sunflowers. Jennifer brought out my suitcase and set it beside me. "Like you're traveling. It'll be so cute." I stood there, confused but smiling, holding my suitcase handle while they took photo after photo. Everyone was laughing. Phones were clicking. One more. And then I heard it. Car doors slamming. I turned around just in time to see them all piling into both SUVs. Fast, efficient, like they'd practiced it. "Wait," I said. "What are you—" The engine started. "Wait," I called out, louder now, walking toward them. "What's happening?" Michael stuck his head out the window, and he was laughing. Actually laughing. "Have a nice walk, Ma." My brain couldn't process it. This had to be a joke. "What? What do you mean?" But they were already moving. Both cars. Backing up. Turning around. "Stop!" I screamed, running after them. "This isn't funny. Stop!" David's car pulled away first. Then Stephanie's. I ran down that gravel driveway in my sandals, my hand stretched out like I could physically stop them. "Michael, David, please." They kept going. Past the sunflowers. Onto the road. Gone. I stood there in the middle of that driveway, bent over, hands on my knees, watching the dust settle. The sound of their engines faded, and then there was nothing but silence, cicadas buzzing in the heat, and the pounding of my own heart. My own children had left me. My own sons, their wives, my grandchildren. They had planned this. The farm stand wasn't random. The photos with my suitcase weren't spontaneous. This was coordinated, premeditated. They had looked me in the eyes, smiled and abandoned me in the middle of nowhere, like I was garbage on the side of the road. I stood there for I don't know how long. Long enough for the shock to turn to disbelief. Long enough for the disbelief to turn to something harder and colder and clearer than anything I'd felt in years. I pulled out my phone. No signal. Of course not. I walked toward the barn, found one flickering bar near an old tractor, and I made a call. Hilton Head Paradise Resort. This is Brenda speaking. How may I help you? My hands were shaking. My voice was not. Yes, this is Ruth Callahan. I have a reservation for 10 people. Checking in today. Confirmation number H7743B. Typing sounds. Yes, ma'am. I have it right here. 3 suites, 1 week. Everything's ready for you. I took a breath. This was it. There would be no taking it back. I need to cancel, I said. I'm sorry, ma'am? Yes. Cancel all the stays. We're not going anymore. Hours later, my family pulled up to that resort. 10 people, 2 SUVs, luggage piled high, kids bouncing with excitement. They walked into that beautiful lobby expecting their perfect beach vacation, the one I'd paid for with a year of my life. The receptionist looked at her computer, then looked up at them with apologetic eyes. I'm sorry, but your reservation has been canceled. The refund has already been processed. I wasn't there to see their faces. I was 40 miles away at a small bed and breakfast in Spartanburg, sitting on a Victorian porch with lace curtains and flower boxes, a glass of sweet tea sweating in the Carolina heat beside me. I had a novel open in my lap. Classical music was playing somewhere inside, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, I was at peace. My phone started buzzing. 1 call, then another, then dozens. Text messages flooded in. Mom, where are you? The reservation is canceled? Mom, this isn't funny. We drove all this way. Call us back now. I read every single one. Watched the panic escalate. Watched them realize what I'd done. Watched them scramble. And then I turned my phone face down and kept reading. They wanted their perfect week at the beach. They wanted to laugh at their grandmother, to treat her like a punchline, to use her money and throw her away. Well, they were going to learn something about consequences, about dignity, about what happens when you push someone too far. I had a week here, a week of quiet, a week of nobody needing anything from me, a week to figure out who I was when I wasn't trying to earn love from people who should have given it freely. And when that week was over, when I finally went home and faced them, that's when the real reckoning would begin. Because I'd spent 65 years being the easy mother, the accommodating grandmother, the woman who always put everyone else first. I'd spent 65 years making myself smaller so everyone else could be comfortable. But standing on that roadside, watching my own family drive away, laughing, something in me had broken. Or maybe something in me had finally healed. Either way, the Ruth Callahan they abandoned at that farm stand, she wasn't coming back. Someone new was coming home instead. Someone who knew her worth. Someone who wouldn't sacrifice her dignity for peace. Someone who understood that being loved meant nothing if you had to disappear to receive it. And my sons, my family, were about to meet her for the very first time. I woke up at 5 in the morning, 2 hours before my alarm was set to go off. My eyes just opened on their own, the way they do when you're a child on Christmas morning. Except I wasn't a child. I was 65 years old, and Christmas had long stopped feeling magical. But this morning was different. This morning we were going to Hilton Head. The darkness outside my bedroom window was starting to soften into that deep blue that comes just before dawn. I could hear the first birds beginning their songs in the dogwood tree outside. I lay there for a moment, my hands folded on top of the worn quilt my mother had made 40 years ago, and I let myself feel it, the pure, uncomplicated joy of anticipation. It had been so long since I'd felt this way, so long since I'd had something to look forward to that felt genuinely mine, genuinely good. I got up and padded to the bathroom in my bare feet, the old floorboards creaking under me in the small bungalow I'd lived in for 30 years. In the mirror, I looked at myself, really looked. Gray hair pulled back in the braid I slept in, lines around my eyes that deepened when I smiled, which I did now, unable to help it. You did it, Ruth, I whispered to my reflection. You really did it. 12 months, 52 weeks. 365 days of saving every spare dollar. I'd worked extra shifts at the Asheville Public Library, shelving books until my back ached, helping patrons find everything from tax forms to romance novels. I'd skipped my usual Thursday lunch at the diner with my friend Margaret, bringing soup from home instead. I'd turned down the thermostat in winter, worn sweaters inside, made my own coffee instead of stopping at the cafe on Merriman Avenue. Every single choice, every small sacrifice had been for this. One perfect week with my entire family at the ocean. The reservation confirmation was still on my refrigerator, held up by a magnet shaped like North Carolina. I'd looked at it so many times I had it memorized. 3 suites at the Hilton Head Paradise Resort, ocean front, checking in Saturday, May 18th, checking out Saturday, May 25th. 10 people total. My 2 sons, Michael and David, their wives, Jennifer and Stephanie, and my 4 grandchildren, Emma 14, Tyler 12, Madison 9, and little Lucas 7. All of us together, under the same roof, or at least the same building. Meals together, sand castles, sunsets, the kind of memories that last. I made coffee in the old percolator on the stove. I'd never gotten used to those fancy machines, and sat at my small kitchen table, watching the sky turn pink through the window. The morning was unusually warm for mid-May in the mountains. A good omen, I thought. Everything about this trip felt right, felt blessed, even though I wasn't supposed to think in those terms anymore. My sons had drifted away from church years ago, and their families followed suit. But I still went to early Mass at St. Eugene's on Sundays, still said a quiet grace before meals when I ate alone. Old habits, maybe, or something deeper. Either way, I'd been praying for this trip for months, that it would bring us closer, heal the little distances that had grown between us. My suitcase was already packed. It had been sitting by the front door for 2 weeks. A small blue rolling bag with a red ribbon tied to the handle so I'd recognize it at baggage claim. Except we weren't flying. We were driving. Michael had said he'd pick me up at 7:30. We'll all caravan down together, Ma. It'll be fun. Like old times. Old times. I tried to remember when those were. When the boys were young, maybe. Before they got busy with their own lives, their own families, their own everything. I showered and dressed carefully. I'd bought a new outfit for the trip, a pair of khaki capris and a light blue blouse with small white flowers on it. Nothing fancy, but new, and that felt special. I even put on a little makeup, which I rarely did anymore. Lipstick, a touch of blush. I wanted to look nice in the photos I knew we'd take. By 7:15, I was sitting on my front porch, suitcase beside me, purse in my lap. The morning was gorgeous. The mountains in the distance were layered in shades of blue and green, the way they get when the light hits them just right. My neighborhood, a quiet street of small houses in West Asheville, was waking up. Mrs. Chen was watering her roses next door. A jogger went by with a golden retriever. Everything felt normal and perfect and full of promise. 7:30 came and went. Then 7:45. At 8 o'clock, I called Michael's cell phone. It rang 4 times before he picked up, and I could hear noise in the background. Voices, laughter, music. Ma, hey, sorry, we're running a little behind. That's okay, sweetheart. Should I? Actually, change of plans. We're all meeting at David's place first. The kids wanted to see each other before we got on the road. Can you come over here instead? Something in his voice seemed off, but I couldn't place it. Too cheerful, maybe. Of course. I'll call a cab. Perfect. See you soon. He hung up before I could say, I love you, which I always said when we talked. I sat there for a moment, phone in hand, feeling the first small ripple of something I couldn't name. But I pushed it away. They were excited. The kids were excited. Everything was fine. The cab arrived 20 minutes later. The driver was a young man with kind eyes and an accent I couldn't place. Maybe Middle Eastern. Where to? He asked, and I gave him David's address in North Asheville, in one of those newer subdivisions where all the houses looked like they'd been designed by the same person. Big, with 2-car garages and perfect lawns and basketball hoops in the driveways. You going somewhere nice? He asked, glancing at my suitcase. Hilton Head, I said, and I heard the pride in my own voice. Family vacation. The whole family. That's beautiful, he said, and he smiled at me in the rearview mirror. Family is everything. Yes, I agreed. It really is. We drove through downtown Asheville, past the Art Deco buildings and the tourists already clustering around the coffee shops and galleries. It was going to be a busy weekend in town, some kind of music festival. But we'd be long gone, heading east toward the coast. I watched the city go by and thought about the ocean. I'd only been a handful of times in my life. Once as a child, to Atlantic Beach with my parents. Once on my honeymoon with Robert, before the boys were born, before the cancer took him at 43, and once more, years later, with the church group. Each time the ocean had felt like something holy, vast and endless and full of God's mystery. I wanted my grandchildren to feel that. I wanted them to stand at the edge of the continent and understand how big the world was, and how small we were, and how that was okay. When we pulled up to David's house, both SUVs were in the driveway. David's black Ford Explorer and Michael's silver Honda Pilot. I could see people moving around inside through the big front windows. The cab driver helped me with my suitcase, and I paid him, adding a generous tip. "Have a blessed trip," he said, and I thanked him. I walked up the stone pathway to the front door. Before I could knock, it flew open, and Tyler came barreling out. "Grandma!" He gave me a quick hug. 12-year-old boys weren't big on affection anymore, I'd learned, and then ran back inside shouting, "Grandma's here!" The house was chaos. Good chaos, or so it seemed. Emma was on the couch texting, barely looking up. Madison and Lucas were chasing each other around the kitchen island. David was loading coolers into the back of his Explorer. Jennifer was checking something on her phone, a coffee mug in her other hand. Stephanie was wiping down the counter, even though they were about to leave. Michael was in the garage. I could hear him moving things around. "Ruth!" Stephanie looked up and smiled, but there was something about it that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Coffee? We have a fresh pot." "No, thank you, dear. I'm fine." "Are we about ready?" David came through carrying a beach chair. "Almost, Ma. Just loading up. Should I put my suitcase in one of the cars?" Yeah, just set it by the door. We'll grab it." I stood there in the entryway feeling oddly like a guest in my own son's home. I'd been here dozens of times. Sunday dinners, birthday parties, Christmas mornings. But something felt different today. There was an energy I couldn't read. Everyone seemed excited but also distracted. Busy. Like they were focused on something I wasn't part of. Michael emerged from the garage and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Hey, Ma. You look nice." "Thank you, sweetheart. You look tired. Did you sleep okay?" "Yeah, fine. Just a lot to coordinate, you know. Getting everyone out the door." "I understand. Is there anything I can do to help?" "Nope. We got it. You just relax. Relax." I nodded and sat down in one of the dining room chairs, my purse in my lap, watching the organized chaos around me. Jennifer was checking a list on her phone. David was arguing with Stephanie about whether they'd pack the sunscreen. Emma asked if there'd be Wi-Fi at the resort. Tyler wanted to know if they could stop at a Bojangles on the way. Madison was crying because Lucas had taken her stuffed dolphin. It was loud and messy and exhausting. And part of me thought, this is family. This is what I paid for. All of us together, even the chaos. But there was something else, something underneath it all, that I still couldn't name. Little glances between the adults. Jennifer whispering something to Stephanie, who stifled a laugh. Michael and David exchanging a look I couldn't read. "All right." David clapped his hands together. "Let's move out. "Kids, grab your backpacks. Everyone use the bathroom now because we're not stopping for at least an hour." There was a flurry of activity. Kids scrambled. Adults did final checks. I stood up, straightened my blouse, and picked up my purse. Jennifer appeared beside me. "Ruth, you're riding with us," she said, guiding me by the elbow toward the silver Honda Pilot. "The kids will be split up between the two cars to balance the noise level." I climbed into the back seat, the very back, the third row, while Emma got in the middle row with her earbuds already in. Stephanie was driving, and Madison and Lucas were in David's car with him, Michael and Tyler. It felt strange being separated like this, but I told myself it was fine. It was organized. They'd thought it through. The engine started. Music came on, something pop and loud that I didn't recognize. Stephanie adjusted her mirrors. Jennifer scrolled through her phone in the passenger seat. And then we were moving, backing out of the driveway, pulling onto the street, heading toward the highway that would take us east, out of the mountains, across the Piedmont, toward the ocean, and our week together. I settled into my seat and looked out the window at Asheville disappearing behind us. The morning sun was bright and warm. The sky was impossibly blue, and I let myself believe, one more time, that everything was going to be exactly as I'd dreamed. We'd been on the road for about an hour when David's Explorer in front of us suddenly put on its blinker and veered off at an exit. I watched through the windshield, confused. This wasn't a rest stop, just a rural exit with a hand-painted sign that said, "Mossy Creek, 2 miles. "Where are we going?" I asked from the back seat. Stephanie glanced at me in the rearview mirror, that same smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "David found this cute little farm stand on Instagram. We're stopping for photos. The kids will love it." "But we're already behind schedule," I said. "It's almost 10:30. We were supposed to be there by 3. Jennifer turned around from the passenger seat. "Ruth, it's vacation. We have all week. What's another half hour?" I wanted to say that it wasn't another half hour. It was always longer than you thought, getting everyone in and out, getting the pictures, getting back on the road. I wanted to say that I'd planned everything carefully, that the resort held our check-in until 5, but I didn't want to cut it close. But I didn't say any of that. I just nodded and looked out the window as we followed David's car down a winding 2-lane road through farmland. The countryside here was different from the mountains. Flatter, more open. Fields of something green. Soybeans, maybe, or cotton, I couldn't tell. Stretched out on either side. There were farmhouses in the distance. Old tobacco barns with rusted tin roofs. Hand-painted signs advertising boiled peanuts and fresh eggs. It was beautiful in its own way, but it wasn't where we were supposed to be. We turned onto a gravel road marked by a weathered wooden sign. Mossy Creek Farm. Fresh produce. You pick. Farm tours. The road was bumpy and narrow, flanked by tall sunflowers on both sides. After maybe a quarter mile, we pulled into a dirt parking area in front of an old red barn. There was a hand-painted sign propped against a fence post that said, "Welcome," in cheerful yellow letters. David's car stopped first and we pulled up beside it. Everyone started piling out immediately. The kids were already running toward the sunflowers, phones out, taking pictures. The adults were stretching, laughing, pointing at things. I sat in my seat for a moment, watching through the window. Something still felt off. The way they'd all jumped out so quickly. The way Jennifer and Stephanie were already walking together toward the barn, heads close, whispering about something. The way Michael was filming the kids with his phone, narrating like he was making some kind of documentary. "Come on, Ruth," Stephanie called back to me. "You can't stay in the car." I unbuckled my seatbelt and climbed out. The sun hit me immediately. It was hot out here. Hotter than in the mountains. There was no shade except under the barn's overhang, and no breeze, just the thick, heavy heat of the Carolina lowlands and the buzz of insects in the tall grass. Madison ran up to me and grabbed my hand. Grandma, come see the sunflowers. They're taller than Daddy. She pulled me toward the field and I went, trying to shake off the unease I felt. The sunflowers were beautiful, I had to admit. Huge golden faces turned toward the sun, green stalks thick as my wrist. Madison positioned me in front of them and ran back to get her mother to take a picture. Ruth, stand right there. David was calling me now, his phone up. Yeah, right there. Perfect. I stood where he pointed, feeling awkward and exposed in the bright sun. I'm not someone who likes having my picture taken. I never have been. Even as a young woman, I felt uncomfortable in front of a camera. Too aware of my own face, my own body, the way I never quite knew what to do with my hands. Smile, Ma, Michael called. I smiled. Bigger. Come on, you're going to the beach. I smiled bigger, feeling my face start to ache from holding it. Jennifer appeared with my suitcase. That's when I should have known. That's when I should have understood. But I didn't. I was too focused on being accommodating, on not complaining, on being the easy mother-in-law, the easy grandmother, the easy mother. Let's get one with your suitcase, Jennifer said brightly. Like you're traveling. It'll be so cute. I don't understand. Just for fun, Ruth. Come on, humor us. She positioned the suitcase next to me. I stood there, my hand on the handle, feeling more confused by the second, but going along with it because that's what I always did. I went along. I smoothed things over. I didn't make waves. They took photos. Lots of photos. Different angles, different poses. Emma even came over and stood next to me for a few, though she looked bored and kept checking her phone between shots. Tyler made bunny ears behind my head in one, and everyone laughed. Even I laughed, though I wasn't sure what was funny. One more, Stephanie kept saying. And then, in the middle of my smile, still holding my suitcase, still standing in the hot sun in front of those towering sunflowers, I heard it. Car doors slamming. I turned around, my smile fading, and saw them all piling back into the two SUVs. Fast, efficient, like they'd practiced it. Wait, I said. What are you... The engine started. Wait, I called out, louder now, walking toward them. What's happening? Michael stuck his head out the window of David's car, and he was laughing, actually laughing. Have a nice walk, Ma. My brain couldn't process it. I actually laughed too, confused, thinking this had to be some kind of joke. What? What do you mean? But they were already moving, both cars, backing up, turning around on the gravel. Stop! I shouted now, panic rising in my chest. This isn't funny. Stop! David's car pulled away first, heading back toward the road. Then Stephanie's. I could see her through the windshield. Smiling, actually smiling, as she followed. I ran after them, my sandals slipping on the gravel, my hand outstretched like I could physically stop a 2-ton vehicle with my palm. Michael, David, please! They kept going, down the long gravel driveway, past the sunflowers toward the road. I ran until I couldn't anymore, until my lungs were burning and my legs felt weak. I stopped in the middle of the driveway, bent over, hands on my knees, watching them disappear. The dust settled, the sound of their engines faded, and then there was nothing but silence and the buzz of cicadas and the pounding of my own heart. I stood up slowly, looking around. The farm, the barn, the sunflowers, my suitcase sitting in the dirt where I'd left it, and me, alone. It took me a long time to move. I don't know how long. Minutes, maybe. Long enough for the sweat to start running down my back, for my mouth to go completely dry, for the reality of what had just happened to sink in like stones, settling to the bottom of a river. My own children had left me here. My own sons, their wives. They had planned this. The Instagram post about the farm stand. Fake, probably, or at least an excuse. The photos with my suitcase. So they could remember this moment, so they could laugh about it later. The way they had all jumped into the cars so fast, Practiced, coordinated. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment prank. This was premeditated. I walked back to my suitcase on legs that didn't feel like my own. I picked up my purse from where I'd set it down on the ground. And then I just stood there, looking at nothing, feeling everything. The betrayal came first, sharp and bright and total. They had looked me in the eyes and smiled while planning to abandon me in the middle of nowhere. They had taken my money, my year of sacrifice, my scrimping and saving and doing without. And they were using it to go to the beach while leaving me behind like garbage on the side of the road. Then came the humiliation. I imagined them in the cars right now, laughing, replaying the moment I'd realized what was happening. "Did you see her face? She actually ran after us." The kids probably thought it was hilarious. Grandma, left at a farm stand, like a forgotten package. What a story. What a memory. And then, underneath it all, something worse. A question I didn't want to ask but couldn't avoid. Why? Why would they do this? What had I done to deserve this? Was I annoying? Too demanding? Too old? Too much of a burden? Had I said something wrong, done something wrong, been something wrong without knowing it? I felt tears starting, hot and angry, and I forced them back. "Not here, not like this. I wouldn't give them that, too." I pulled out my phone. No signal. Of course not. We were in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by fields and farms and nothing else. I held the phone up, turned in a circle, trying to find even one bar. Nothing. The heat was becoming unbearable. I could feel my face burning, my scalp prickling under my hair. I needed shade. I needed water. I needed to think. I pulled my suitcase across the gravel toward the barn. There was an older man there, wearing overalls and a faded John Deere cap, watching me from the doorway. He'd probably seen the whole thing. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked as I approached. The kindness in his voice almost broke me. I stopped, took a breath and managed to speak. "My family. They left me. As a joke, I think. Or maybe not a joke, I don't know." He nodded slowly, like this wasn't the strangest thing he'd ever heard. "Come on in out of this heat. Let's get you some water." The barn was blessedly cool and dim. There was a small farm stand inside, baskets of tomatoes and corn, jars of honey and preserves on wooden shelves, a hand-painted sign that said, "Honor System, leave payment in box." The man led me to a wooden bench against the wall and disappeared into a back room. He returned with a glass of lemonade, condensation already forming on the outside. "Drink that," he said. "I'm Earl. My wife Martha and I run this place." I drank. The lemonade was perfect, cold and sweet and tart. I finished half the glass before I could speak. "I'm Ruth. Ruth Callahan. You got people you can call, Ruth?" I nodded. "If I can get a signal. I need to figure out what to do." "Well, you're welcome to stay here as long as you need. We got a phone inside the house you can use if you want." I looked at him. This stranger showing me more kindness in 5 minutes than my own family had in. How long? Years, maybe. When was the last time one of my sons had really asked me how I was doing? When was the last time they'd visited me, instead of me always going to them? When was the last time they'd included me in something, without making me feel like I was in the way? "Thank you," I said, and my voice cracked. "Thank you so much." Earl nodded and left me alone on the bench. I sat there in the cool dimness, suitcase beside me, lemonade in my hands, and I let myself feel everything. The anger, the hurt, the betrayal, the grief, all of it, washing over me in waves. And then, slowly, something else started to rise, something harder and clearer and colder, a decision forming like ice crystallizing on a window. I stood up and walked to the doorway where I'd seen one bar of signal earlier. I held up my phone and waited until the bar appeared, wavering but present. My hands were shaking, but not from weakness, from fury, from clarity. I dialed the number I had memorized, the one on the refrigerator magnet, the one I'd called a dozen times over the past months, to confirm and reconfirm our reservation. Hilton Head Paradise Resort. This is Brenda speaking. How may I help you? Her voice was cheerful, professional, exactly the same as it had been every other time I'd called. It steadied me. Yes, I said, and my voice came out steady too. Strong, clear. This is Ruth Callahan. I have a reservation for 10 people checking in today. Confirmation number H7743B. I heard typing on the other end. Yes, ma'am, I have it right here. 3 suites, 1 week. Everything's ready for you. Is there something I can help you with? I took a breath. This was it. This was the moment. There would be no taking it back. I need to cancel, I said. There was a pause. I'm sorry, ma'am. Cancel. Yes, cancel all the stays. We're not going anymore. Another pause. Longer this time. Mrs. Callahan, I'm very sorry to hear that. Is everything all right? Yes, I said. And I meant it. For the first time in hours, maybe years, I meant it. Everything is fine. I just need to cancel the reservation and process the refund. Brenda was professional, kind. She explained the cancellation policy. I'd lose about 20%, but get back most of what I'd paid. She asked if I was sure. She mentioned that it was peak season, that they'd have no trouble rebooking the rooms, that there was no pressure, but she wanted me to know my options. I'm sure, I said. Please process it. She did. It took maybe 5 minutes. She confirmed my credit card information, confirmed the amount I'd receive back, confirmed that the reservation was fully canceled. Is there anything else I can help you with today, Mrs. Callahan? No, I said. Thank you. Thank you for being so kind. You're very welcome. I hope everything works out for you. I hung up and stood there for a moment, phone in my hand, looking out at the sunflowers swaying in the hot breeze. It was done. The reservation I'd dreamed about for a year, saved for, planned for, built every hope around. Gone. Canceled. Erased. And I felt nothing but relief. I walked back into the barn where Earl was restocking some shelves. Earl, could I use your phone to call a cab? Sure thing. Where you headed? Anywhere but here, I said. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can think. He nodded and led me into a small office off the barn. There was an old rotary phone on a desk surrounded by paperwork and seed catalogs. He looked up a taxi company in a worn phone book and handed me the phone. While I waited for the cab, they said 45 minutes. Martha came out from the house, a woman about my age with gray hair in a bun and eyes that had seen things. She didn't ask questions. She just brought me another glass of lemonade and a sandwich she'd made. Tomato and cheese on wheat bread. Simple and perfect. We sat on the porch together, in rocking chairs that creaked. And we didn't talk. We just sat. And somehow, that was exactly what I needed. When the cab finally arrived, I thanked them both. Earl helped me with my suitcase. Martha pressed a small jar of honey into my hands. For wherever you're going, she said. The cab driver was a young man, maybe 30, with tired eyes but a kind smile. Where to? I don't know, I admitted. Somewhere quiet, somewhere peaceful. Do you know a place? He thought for a moment. My cousin runs a bed and breakfast in Spartanburg, about 40 minutes from here. Real nice place, old Victorian house. She'll take care of you, I think. That sounds perfect, I said. We drove. I watched the farmland give way to small towns, then to the outskirts of Spartanburg. The driver didn't try to make conversation, sensing maybe that I needed the silence. I held Martha's jar of honey in my lap and tried not to think about what came next. The Magnolia Inn appeared like something from another era. A beautiful 3-story Victorian painted pale yellow with white trim. A wraparound porch with hanging ferns and rocking chairs. Flower boxes overflowing with petunias. A hand-painted sign by the front walk said, "Welcome," in elegant script. The driver helped me with my suitcase again. I paid him and gave him a generous tip. "Thank you," I said, "for everything. You take care now," he said, and drove away. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, looking up at this unexpected haven. Then I picked up my suitcase and walked up the porch steps. A small bell chimed when I opened the front door. A woman emerged from a side room, 50s, auburn hair going gray, wearing a floral dress and an apron. "Hello. Welcome to the Magnolia Inn. I'm Caroline. Do you have a reservation?" "No," I said. "I'm sorry. I know it's last minute. I was wondering if you had a room available. Just for a week." Caroline studied me for a moment, and I had the feeling she saw more than I was saying. "Let me check." She went behind an old oak desk and looked at a book, an actual paper reservation book, not a computer. "I have a lovely room on the second floor. Queen bed, private bath, porch access. Would that work?" "That sounds perfect." She quoted me a price that was reasonable, less than I'd budgeted for my share of the resort. I gave her my credit card and signed the registration form. "No luggage besides the one bag?" she asked gently. "This is all I need," I said. She handed me an old-fashioned key, an actual metal key, not a keycard. "Room 7, second floor, end of the hall. Breakfast is served from 7 to 9 in the dining room. There's coffee and tea available all day in the parlor. And if you need anything at all, just let me know." "Thank you," I managed. I climbed the stairs, found room 7, and unlocked the door. The room was perfect. Lace curtains, a quilt on the bed, a small writing desk by the window, a ceiling fan turning slowly overhead. I set my suitcase down, put Martha's honey on the nightstand, and sat on the edge of the bed. That's when my phone started buzzing. One call, then another, then texts. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Michael, David, Jennifer, Stephanie. The group chat we used for family coordination was going crazy. "Mom, where are you? The reservation is canceled." "What do you mean the reservation is canceled?" "Mom, this isn't funny. We drove all this way. Call us back now. Mom, please." I read them all, every single one. I watched the panic escalate, watched them realize what I'd done, watched them scramble. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Power. I turned my phone face down on the nightstand, stood up, and went to the window. The late afternoon sun was streaming through the lace curtains, casting patterns on the wooden floor. Somewhere downstairs I could hear soft music playing, something classical, something peaceful. I had a whole week here, a week of quiet, a week of nobody needing anything from me, nobody taking from me, nobody using me. A week to figure out who I was when I wasn't trying to be everything to everyone. My phone kept buzzing. I let it buzz, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, I smiled. I didn't answer my phone that first night, or the second. I let the calls and texts pile up, dozens of them, then hundreds, while I sat in my quiet room at the Magnolia Inn and simply breathed. On Sunday morning, I woke to the sound of church bells. They were coming from somewhere nearby, clear and resonant through my open window. I lay in bed for a long time, listening to them, feeling something in my chest loosen. When was the last time I'd woken up without immediately thinking about what everyone else needed, without planning someone else's day, someone else's comfort, someone else's happiness? I got dressed and went downstairs for breakfast. Caroline had set out a beautiful spread in the dining room. Fresh biscuits, local honey. I'd brought Martha's jar down with me. Scrambled eggs, fruit, coffee that smelled like heaven. There were 2 other guests, a couple from Charlotte celebrating their anniversary, and we ate in comfortable near silence, just pleasantries and passed butter, the kind of meal where nobody needed anything from me. After breakfast, I asked Caroline about the church bells. "St. Mary's," she said. "Catholic church about 3 blocks away. They have mass at 9, if you're interested." I hadn't planned to go. I'd packed for a beach vacation, not church. No dress clothes, no proper shoes. But something pulled me there anyway. I walked the 3 blocks in my khaki capris and floral blouse, carrying my purse with my rosary inside that I always kept there, even though I rarely took it out anymore. The church was small and beautiful. Red brick, white steeple, stained glass windows that threw colored light across the pews. I slipped into the back row just as Mass was starting. There were maybe 30 people scattered throughout, mostly older folks like me. A few young families with squirming children. I don't remember much of the homily, something about the prodigal son, which felt too on the nose given my situation. But I remember kneeling during the consecration, my hands folded, my head bowed, and feeling for the first time in days like I could actually pray. Not the desperate bargaining prayers I'd been saying since yesterday. Please let them understand. Please let this work out. Please let me have done the right thing. But something quieter, something like, help me know what comes next. When I took communion, the elderly priest looked at me with such kindness that I almost cried. The body of Christ, he said. And I said, Amen. And I meant it in a way I hadn't meant it in years. After Mass, I didn't go straight back to the inn. I walked. Spartanburg was having one of those perfect spring days. Warm but not hot. Blue sky. Flowers everywhere. I found a small park with a pond and sat on a bench, watching ducks paddle around, children playing on a playground nearby. My phone was in my purse, still buzzing periodically. I still didn't look at it. Instead, I thought about my life. Really thought about it. Maybe for the first time since Robert died 22 years ago. After he was gone, I'd poured everything into being a good mother. I'd raised the boys alone, worked 2 jobs, made sure they had everything they needed. I'd been so proud when they both graduated college, got good jobs, married nice women, had children of their own. I thought I'd done everything right. But somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being a person to them and become a function, a service, someone who babysat when they needed it, who brought food to their houses, who remembered everyone's birthdays and bought the presents and organized the holidays, someone who was useful, but not necessarily valued. And I'd let it happen. I'd enabled it by always saying yes, always accommodating, always putting their needs first, until my own needs had seemed to disappear entirely. The realization hurt, but it was also clarifying. Around noon, I finally looked at my phone. There were 63 missed calls, 147 texts, 5 voicemails. I sat on that park bench and I read through some of them, watching the progression from confusion to anger to panic to something that might have been remorse, though it was hard to tell. Michael, from yesterday afternoon. Mom, seriously, where are you? We need to talk about this. Call me back. David, from last night. Ma, this is insane. You're acting crazy. Just tell us where you are. Jennifer, this morning. Ruth, we're worried about you. Please just let us know you're safe. Stephanie, an hour ago. The kids are really upset. They want to talk to Grandma. They don't understand why you did this. That one made me angry, using the children as leverage, making this somehow about them being hurt when they'd been laughing in those cars yesterday, when they'd thought abandoning their grandmother was hilarious. There was only one voicemail I listened to all the way through. It was from Michael, left late last night, and his voice sounded different, tired, maybe scared. Mom. Ma, please call me back. We messed up. We know we messed up. It was supposed to be a joke. We were going to come back and get you, but I don't know. It got out of hand. David thought it would be funny, and Jen and Steph went along with it, and I should have stopped it, but I didn't, and we're sorry. We're really sorry. Please just tell us where you are. We love you. I saved that one. Not because it made everything okay, but because it was a start. A small one. A bare minimum one. But a start. I didn't call back. Not yet. Instead, I called Margaret, my friend from home. The one I'd skipped Thursday lunches with to save money. "Ruth," she answered on the first ring. "Where are you? I've been so worried. David called me this morning asking if I'd heard from you." "I'm okay," I said. "I'm in Spartanburg, at a bed and breakfast." "What? What happened? What about Hilton Head?" I told her everything. The farm stand, the abandonment, the cancellation. Her silence on the other end spoke volumes. "Ruth," she finally said, her voice tight with fury, "I will drive to wherever your sons are right now, and I will personally—" "Margaret, no, I mean it. What they did is unforgivable, unconscionable. I don't care if it was supposed to be a joke. I know. Do you? Because you've spent years making excuses for those boys. That hurt because it was true. I'm not making excuses anymore," I said quietly. I need time to figure out what happens next." We talked for another hour. She told me about the new book club selection, about the drama at the library. Apparently Susan, in reference, was retiring. About ordinary life continuing without me. It was grounding. It reminded me that I had a life outside my children, outside being a grandmother. I'd just forgotten it for a while. That afternoon, I went back to the inn and did something I hadn't done in years. I took a nap, just climbed into that comfortable bed with the lace curtains filtering the sunlight, and I slept deeply and dreamlessly for 3 hours. When I woke up, I felt clearer, stronger. I showered, changed into fresh clothes, and went downstairs to the parlor where Caroline had said there was tea. She was there, reading a book in an armchair by the window. "Feel better?" she asked, looking up. "A little," I said. "Want to talk about it?" I hadn't planned to, but sitting there in that peaceful room with this woman who didn't know me, and therefore didn't have expectations of me, it all came pouring out. The whole story. The year of saving, the excitement, the farm stand, the betrayal, the cancellation. All of it. Caroline listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "I had a similar experience," she finally said. "Not exactly the same, but similar. It's why I run this place now. Sometimes God closes doors we were desperately trying to hold open, so He can show us the windows we never noticed." "That's a kind way of putting it," I said. "It's also true. You gave them everything, Ruth. Your time, your money, your energy, your love, and they took it all, and then threw you away like trash. That's not your fault. That's theirs." Hearing someone else say it, someone objective, someone outside the situation, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. "But they're my children," I said, and my voice cracked. "They are, and that makes what they did worse, not better. Being family doesn't give you permission to be cruel. It gives you a responsibility to be kind." I cried then. Not the angry tears from yesterday, or the shocked tears from the farm stand, but something deeper. Grief for what I thought I had and didn't. Grief for the family I'd believed we were. Grief for all those years of trying so hard and it not mattering. Caroline let me cry. She brought me tissues and more tea, and sat with me until I was empty. Monday morning, I finally called Michael back. He answered on the first ring. "Mom." "Oh, thank God. Are you okay? Where are you?" "I'm fine," I said. "I'm safe. That's all you need to know." "Mom, please. We need to talk about this. We need to explain." "Michael, I don't want to hear explanations right now. I want you to listen." Silence. He wasn't used to me using that tone. "What you all did was cruel," I said, my voice steady. "Planned cruelty. You didn't just hurt me. You humiliated me. You made me believe I was part of something, that I mattered, and then you threw me away like a punchline to a joke I wasn't in on. It wasn't... We didn't mean..." "You did mean it. You coordinated it. You brought my suitcase out for the photos so you could remember the moment. You all got in those cars knowing exactly what you were doing. So don't tell me you didn't mean it." More silence. Then quietly, You're right. That surprised me. I'd expected more defensiveness, more excuses. What? You're right. We did plan it. David's idea originally, but we all went along with it. We thought, I don't know what we thought, that it would be funny, that you'd see the humor in it, that we'd come back for you after a few minutes and you'd laugh and we'd all laugh and it would be this family story. But you didn't come back. No, we didn't. Because once we did it, once we actually drove away and saw you in the rearview mirror, running after us, it stopped being funny real fast. And then we were in too deep. We'd already done it. We couldn't undo it, so we just kept going. And it never occurred to any of you to turn around, to apologize, to admit you'd gone too far. A long pause. It occurred to me. But by then we were already on the highway, and David said we'd already committed, and turning back would just make it worse, and I don't know, Mom. I don't have a good answer. I should have turned around. I should have never let it happen in the first place. I took a breath. Do you understand why I canceled the reservation? To punish us. No, Michael. To save myself. Because if I hadn't done that, if I'd just called you crying and begging to be picked up, you'd have come back eventually, and we'd have gone to Hilton Head, and you all would have spent the whole week laughing about what you did, making jokes about it, turning it into a funny family story, and I'd have had to smile and pretend it was fine, because that's what I always do. I always make it fine. I always smooth it over. I always sacrifice my own dignity so everyone else can be comfortable. Mom, I'm not finished. I spent a year saving for that trip, Michael. A year. Every dollar I could spare went into that account. I worked extra shifts. I ate soup for lunch. I turned down the thermostat in January and wore 3 sweaters. Also, I could give you all something special. And you threw it, you threw me, away. I could hear him crying on the other end. I'm so sorry. I know you are. Now. Because there are consequences. But were you sorry when you were driving away? Were you sorry when you got to the resort? Or were you just sorry when you realized I'd actually stood up for myself? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I love you, Michael, I said. I love all of you. But I don't like who I become when I'm trying to earn your love. And I'm done doing that. What does that mean? It means I'm staying here for the week, by myself, and then I'm going home. And then we're going to have a much longer conversation about what comes next. Can we see you? Can we come there? No, this week is mine. What about the kids? They want to talk to you. The kids are fine. They have their parents. Tell them Grandma loves them and we'll see them soon. Mom, I have to go, Michael. I'll call you in a few days. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but I felt something like triumph. I'd said what I needed to say. I hadn't backed down. I hadn't made it easier for him. I'd held the line. The rest of the week passed in a kind of blessed ordinariness. I walked Spartanburg's downtown, browsing the small shops and cafes. I found a bookstore and bought 3 novels I'd been meaning to read. I sat in the inn's garden every morning with coffee and actually read them. I went to Mass twice more, letting the ritual and the quiet wash over me. I had lunch at a little diner where the waitress called me Honey and didn't ask questions. I called Margaret every evening, and we talked about nothing important and everything important. Caroline and I became friends. In that way, women of a certain age can become friends quickly when they recognize themselves in each other. She told me about her own children. 2 daughters, both living across the country, both busy with their own lives. I spent years being resentful they didn't visit more, she said, until I realized I'd raised them to be independent. I'd succeeded. Their lives were full and good, and that was enough. Is it? I asked. Enough. Most days, she said honestly. And on the days it's not, I have this place. I have my guests. I have my garden. I have my church. I have a life that's mine. I don't know if I know how to do that, I admitted. You're doing it right now? Wednesday afternoon, David called. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened to the message. Ma, it's David. I don't know what to say. Michael told me about your conversation and he's right, we messed up. Bad. I'm not going to make excuses. It was my idea and it was stupid and cruel and I'm sorry. I'm really, truly sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix it, but I need you to know I said it. And I need you to know that you deserved better. You've always deserved better than how we've treated you. So when you're ready to talk, I'll be here. And if you're not ready, I'll wait. I love you, Ma. I saved that one too. Thursday, I had lunch with Father Morrison, the elderly priest from St. Mary's. He'd noticed me at Mass and had invited me for coffee, which turned into lunch at the same diner I'd been going to. He was in his 70s, wise and gentle and funny, in that dry way some priests have. I won't pry, he said over his tuna sandwich, but I get the sense you're working through something significant. Oh, I'm trying to figure out what forgiveness looks like when the people who hurt you are people you can't just walk away from. He nodded slowly. That's the hardest kind. The people we're bound to. Family, spouses, sometimes ourselves. I keep thinking I should just forgive them and move on. That's what I'm supposed to do, right? That's what a good mother, a good Christian, would do. Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, and it's not the same as allowing the behavior to continue. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Christ forgave from the cross, but he also overturned tables in the temple. Love doesn't mean being a doormat. Sometimes love means saying, this far and no further. But they're my sons. They are. And they're grown men who made a choice to hurt you. Forgiving that doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means acknowledging it happened, feeling the pain of it, and then choosing not to let it poison you. But it doesn't mean trusting them right away. Trust has to be rebuilt, and that's their job, not yours. I thought about that for a long time after lunch. Forgiveness without trust, love with boundaries. It was a concept I'd never really considered before. In my mind, forgiveness had always meant going back to how things were, pretending nothing had happened. But Father Morrison was suggesting something different, something harder maybe, but also more honest. Friday evening, Jennifer called. This time I answered. Ruth. Her voice was small, uncertain. Thank you for picking up. What can I do for you, Jennifer? I wanted to apologize for my part in everything. I went along with it when I should have spoken up. I should have said it was a terrible idea. I should have refused to participate, and I didn't. And I'm sorry. Why didn't you? I asked. She was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, because I wanted to fit in. With Stephanie, with the guys. I wanted to be part of the joke instead of the one defending you, which is horrible. You've always been kind to me, and I repaid that by throwing you away for a few laughs. Yes, I said. You did. I know sorry isn't enough, but I am sorry. And if you'll let me, I want to do better. I believe you mean that right now, Jennifer. But meaning it in the moment and following through over time are different things. I know. I'll prove it, however long it takes. We'll see, I said. Not cruel, but honest. After we hung up, I felt tired. Not the exhausted tiredness of Sunday, but something deeper. The weariness of holding boundaries when you're used to having none. Of standing firm when you're used to bending. It was hard work, this business of having a spine. But it was also necessary work. Saturday morning, exactly 1 week after I was supposed to be checking into Hilton Head, I packed my suitcase. Caroline insisted I stay for breakfast one more time, and I did. Biscuits and honey, coffee and conversation. She gave me her phone number. You're always welcome back, she said. Anytime. Thank you, I said. For everything. For the room. For the kindness, for the wisdom. You already had the wisdom, she said. You just needed a quiet place to hear it. I took a cab to the Greyhound station. I'd decided I wanted to take the bus home. Wanted the slowness of it. The time to think. The bus to Asheville left at noon and would take about 3 hours. As we pulled out of Spartanburg, I looked out the window at the town that had sheltered me this week. The Victorian houses, the church steeple, the park with the pond. It would always be special to me now. This unexpected sanctuary. This place where I'd learned to say no. Where I'd learned that I mattered even when I wasn't being useful. Where I'd learned that being a good mother didn't mean letting my children treat me badly. The mountains came into view as we approached Asheville. My mountains, my home. I felt a complex mix of emotions. Nervousness about what came next, but also something like peace. I'd done hard things this week. I'd chosen myself when every instinct told me to choose them. I'd held boundaries when I wanted to cave. I'd sat with uncomfortable feelings instead of running from them. The bus pulled into the Asheville station just after 3. I retrieved my suitcase and stood on the curb for a moment, breathing in the mountain air. Then I called a cab. When I got home, my little bungalow looked exactly as I'd left it. The refrigerator magnet with the resort confirmation was still there, though the reservation it referenced no longer existed. I looked at it for a long moment, then took it down and put it in a drawer. Someday maybe I'd throw it away, but not yet. I needed to remember this. I needed to remember what it cost me to learn this lesson. I unpacked slowly, putting things back where they belonged. Martha's honey jar went on my kitchen shelf. The books I'd bought went on my nightstand. The grace I'd found, the strength I'd discovered, the boundaries I'd learned. Those went somewhere deeper, somewhere I'd need to keep protecting. That evening, Margaret came over with dinner. Homemade lasagna and salad, wine and good chocolate. We sat on my front porch as the sun set behind the mountains. And I told her everything. About Caroline and Father Morrison. About the conversations with Michael and David and Jennifer. About learning to choose myself. "I'm proud of you," Margaret said. And I realized how much I'd needed to hear that from someone. "I don't know what happens next," I admitted. "With my family. With everything. Nobody does. But you know what? You've got time to figure it out. And you've got yourself back. That's worth more than a week at the beach." Sunday morning, I went to early mass at St. Anne, Eugene's, my home parish. Father Murphy welcomed me back with a smile, not knowing I'd been gone. I slipped into my usual pew and knelt, rosary in my hands, and I prayed. Not for things to go back to how they were. I didn't want that anymore. I prayed for wisdom to know what came next, for strength to maintain the boundaries I'd set, for the ability to forgive without forgetting, for my sons to truly understand what they'd done, not because I needed their guilt, but because I wanted their growth. And I prayed in thanksgiving for Earl and Martha at the farm, for Caroline at the inn, for Father Morrison's wisdom, for Margaret's friendship, for the week alone that had saved me, for the long road ahead that would be hard but honest. After Mass, I stood in the parking lot for a moment, looking out at the mountains. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Can we come over? We need to talk. All of us." Meaning him and David. Probably the wives, too. I typed back, "Next Sunday, 2 p.m., just you and David." His response came quickly. "We'll be there. Thank you, Ma. I love you." "I love you too," I wrote back. And I did. That was the complicated part. I still loved them. I probably always would. But I'd learned this week that love didn't require me to set myself on fire to keep them warm. Love could exist with boundaries. Love could be honest. Love could say, "You hurt me," and mean it. I had a week to prepare for that conversation. A week to think about what I needed to say, what I needed to hear, what forgiveness would actually look like going forward. A week to rest in my own home, in my own life, in my own skin. I drove home slowly, taking the long way through downtown, past the places I knew and loved. The library where I worked, the diner where Margaret and I had lunch, The park where I walked on nice days. My life was here. Not perfect, not always exciting, but mine. And that afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I sat in my backyard with a glass of sweet tea and one of my new books, and I read for hours. Not because I was waiting for something. Not because I'd finished all my obligations. Not because I'd earned it by putting everyone else first. Just because I wanted to. The sun moved across the sky. The birds sang. The breeze rustled the dogwood leaves. And I sat there, alone but not lonely, hurt but healing, changed but not broken. I sat there and I read and I rested, and I knew, with a certainty I hadn't felt in decades, that I was going to be okay. Not because my family would magically become perfect, not because the hurt would disappear, but because I'd found something on that roadside in the Carolina heat. Something I'd lost so long ago, I'd forgotten I was missing it. Myself, my voice, my worth, my right to take up space in my own life. Whatever came next, hard conversations, gradual rebuilding, cautious trust, or necessary distance, I would face it as someone who knew her own value, someone who wouldn't sacrifice her dignity for peace, someone who understood that being loved meant nothing if you had to disappear to receive it. The reservation to Hilton Head was canceled. The dream of that perfect family week was gone, but in its place I'd found something more valuable. A week with myself. A week that taught me I didn't need an ocean to find peace. I just needed the courage to choose it, the strength to protect it, and the grace to believe I deserved it. As the sun set and the mountains turned purple in the distance, I marked my place in my book and went inside. Tomorrow I'd go back to work at the library. Life would resume its normal patterns, but I would be different. I was different, and that difference, earned through pain and solitude and hard choices, was a gift I'd never return. In my kitchen, Martha's honey jar caught the last light of day. I opened it and spread some on a piece of toast, tasting the sweetness of strangers' kindness, of unexpected grace, of lessons learned the hard way. And I thought about forgiveness, not the cheap kind that costs nothing and changes nothing, but the real kind that acknowledges pain and chooses wholeness anyway. The kind that takes time, the kind that requires change, real change, from everyone involved. The kind that maybe, with patience and grace and honest conversation, could rebuild something better than what was broken. But that was for next Sunday, for the hard conversations ahead, for the long work of healing. Tonight I was just Ruth Callahan, 65 years old, library worker, friend, mother, yes, but other things too. Other things I'd forgotten. Other things I was remembering. And that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything. On the day of the trip to the beach, I paid for a hotel for 10 people for 7 days. When we got there, they abandoned me on a farm and went to have fun on their own. I picked up my phone and said, "Yes, cancel all the reservations. We're not going anymore." When they got there, they were shocked.